Good evening. Thank you for joining our Registrar Voters Voter Education presentation. This presentation is to help voters in our community to better understand how the state of California and the San Bernardino County are preparing for this presidential general election. We have the person in charge of the County Registrar of Voters, Registrar Bob Page, joining us to provide a presentation. Hi, Bob. Thanks for being with us virtually. Feel free to start your presentation at any time.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to present some information about the presidential election that is currently ongoing. Next slide, please. One more, please. So what I will address today is kind of an overview of what's new for all voters in the state because of COVID-19 and some of the new mandates put in place, and how we're implementing some of those changes here in San Bernardino County for our voters. Also, what we're doing for those voters who want to come to a polling location or into our office or an early vote site to vote, how we're going to keep them safe and our election workers safe, and what we're doing to ensure the security of the election. Finally, I will provide a little information about our general voter education campaign and some of the resources we have available to the members of the community if they want to learn more about the election. So in terms of the state, one more slide, please. There were two executive orders issued by the governor earlier this year, as well as two pieces of legislation that were enacted in the summer. They had a number of different requirements for how we conduct this election. I want to just highlight 5 of the key ones that we had to follow. So the first is that the county was required to mail a ballot to all of our active registered voters, but that did not mean that it was an all-mail ballot. We still had to provide in-person voting opportunities. So the state set a minimum requirement for the number of locations. So we must have at least one polling place for every 10,000 voters in our county. Additionally, the state required that we must have at least one mail ballot Dropbox for every 15,000 voters in our county. Also, we must provide our voters with a way to track their ballots and to receive automatic notifications about their status. Finally, we must carry out a voter education campaign. Next, please. So in terms of what that means for San Bernardino County voters, while we did mail a ballot to every voter in our county, it did not take away any of their options for how to actually cast a voted mail ballot. So voters still may return their mail ballot in the mail through the Postal Service, or they may drop it off at one of our official mail ballot Dropbox locations in the county, which is something we've always had, drop-off locations. Additionally, they may vote their mail ballot and put it in the envelope and drop it off at any early vote site, which is a service we've always provided. Finally, they can vote that mail ballot at home, put it in the envelope, sign it, and then bring it to a polling place, any of our polling places, and drop it off. Or if they would prefer to vote a polling place ballot, they can do that as well. Next, please. So vote by mail, we have mailed 1.1 million ballots out to this point. Most of those mailed on the morning of October 5th. And as people are either re-registering or newly registered, changing information, we are mailing out replacement ballots or new ballots to new voters. So we're now currently just over 1.1 million ballots out there. If you are not currently registered to vote and you would like to vote in this election and receive a mail ballot to do so, you must be registered to vote by Monday, October 19th. After that point, there are ways for you still to register conditionally and vote in the election, but the option at that point is to only do so in person at one of our either locations, our office, an early vote site, or at one of our polling places. If you do choose to return your ballot through the mail, the ballot must be postmarked on or before November 3rd. The Postal Service, however, will be given another 17 days after that until November 20th to deliver it to us. But at the end of the day, it must be postmarked on or before November 3rd to be eligible to be counted. The county did sign up with the Secretary of State for its mail ballot tracking system, which is called Where's My Ballot? And by us signing up for it, then all of our voters are able to enroll in that. It's something you must proactively do yourself to go to the Secretary of State's website and sign up. It's not something you automatically get. So when you do sign up, you'll be asked what form of notification you want to receive, whether it's an email, a phone call, or a text message. And the system is set up, Secretary of State's system is set up to send you automatic notifications different points in the process. When your ballot has been mailed by the Registrar of Voters office to you, when we've received it back and run it through our scanners, and to sort out our mail ballots for review, and then ultimately, once we've determined that a mail ballot is eligible to be counted and we've extracted the ballot from the envelope and run it through our ballot scanners, then you will receive a message that your ballot has been counted. The other thing that we, I'm sorry, go back one, a couple more points. The other thing I did want to make a point of pointing out is that we are expecting that we will have more mail ballots to process for this election, but we believe that we are fully capable and have the capacity to handle an increased number of mail ballots. In the March primary, we mailed out ballots to 70% of our voters. So that's obviously a 30% increase in the number of ballots out there. But in 2019, the county did replace our voting system, and as part of that project, we did replace and upgrade and double the capacity of the equipment and the workstations that we have for processing mail ballots. So we have twice the capacity for processing mail ballots that we had for the November 2018 gubernatorial election. Next, please. As I said, you can also drop off your voted mail ballot in one of the county's official mail ballot drop boxes, and this is what they look like. But drop-off locations are not something that's new in this county. We have traditionally had about 56 locations. All of our city clerks and our county library branches had mail ballot boxes for voters to use. But we did, because of the minimum requirement of 1 for every 15,000 voters, have to increase the number of locations. Our minimum requirement was 70, and we were able to establish 72 locations throughout the county. And those outdoor mail ballot drop boxes were unlocked for voting either on Monday the 5th or Tuesday the 6th, so that voting could begin that morning. And they will remain unlocked for voting until 8 p.m. on November 3rd. To find the closest mail ballot drop box location to you, you can go to our website and use our mail ballot drop off locations mapping tool. Once you get in there, you can either use your GPS location or type in an address, and then it will provide you with a list of all of the locations within 3-mile radius of where the address or your GPS location. And you can obviously expand that radius to a higher number, but that's where it starts. And then once you pick the location you want to use, you can then click on driving instructions to that location. Next, please. Early vote sites. So under the law, our office in San Bernardino, we are required to provide early voting services starting on October 5th for this election. And so we've been serving voters since then. We had a number of voters who came in that day to vote. Even though we mailed their ballots that day, they wanted to get started the first day, so they didn't wait for their mail ballot to show up, and they came into our office. We have traditionally opened 5 additional locations throughout the county closer to the election, so that voters can have additional services and not have to always come to San Bernardino for that service. So during the week of October 26th, Monday through Friday, October 30th, we will have 5 additional locations open up throughout the county. One will be in Ontario, one will be in Victorville, another in Apple Valley, one in Joshua Tree, and we will have a location at the San Bernardino International Airport here in San Bernardino. Those locations will all be open those 5 days from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. That information was printed in our county voter information guides, but it's also available on our website. Next, please. So polling places, the requirement of 1 polling place for every 10,000 voters meant that we were required to have at least 105 polling places. We were successful in doubling that requirement and having 210 polling places for this election. But because we didn't achieve, and we did try to have the same number of polling places we had in March for the primary, which was 396, but because we're not able to secure that many polling places, we are required to have them open for 4 days to ensure there's plenty of access for voters to vote. So those polling places will all be open from Saturday, October 31st through Tuesday, November 3rd. That's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. The hours they will be open on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday will be 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. And then on Tuesday, November 3rd, the polling places will all be open the traditional hours of 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. The polling place assignments for every one of our voters has been printed on the back of your county voter information guide. If you've misplaced that, you can go to our website, and we have a tool called Find My Polling Place. You enter your residential address there, and it will then provide you with your assignment, the polling place. It will give you a link to driving instructions, as well as give you a link to an electronic version of your county voter information guide if you'd like to view that. Next, please. So for those people who do want to vote in person or come observe our operations here at our office, I did want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing to ensure that our workers, as well as all voters and observers, are kept safe. So all of our, we secured a large amount of personal protective equipment for this election, either purchased it directly or the Secretary of State was able to help counties acquire certain things for us. So all of our election workers and poll workers will be provided with face masks and plastic face shields to wear over those. They will also be given the option of wearing gloves. They will all have an ample amount of hand sanitizer at our locations, as well as cleaning supplies. Our poll workers have been trained to wipe down and clean all of the high-touch surfaces in the polling places throughout the day. They've also been trained to implement social distancing guidance 6 feet apart when they set up the polling places. We've provided them with floor stickers to be able to set out that marking for people as they're waiting in line to check in. And we've instructed them to set up the checkout and check-in tables and the voting booths that 6 feet apart so that people can stay safe. Additionally, we have secured enough PPE that if a voter comes in or observer comes into our polling place not wearing a face covering, we will offer them a disposable face mask to wear. But if a voter refuses to wear a face mask, we still have to allow them to vote. And so what we'll do to ensure that everybody present at that time remains safe is that we will then offer to the remaining voters in the polling place a plastic face shield to wear, so that while they're voting and somebody else is nearby without any face covering, they will have that extra protection. Next slide, please. So the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly is about how the measures that we're taking to ensure that this election is secure. We have been receiving 3 different types of questions about election security that I wanted to touch on. So the first is about cybersecurity, and I want you to know that we take cybersecurity and protecting our systems very seriously. It's an ongoing evaluation and process and upgrading of our protections. Part of what we have done in the last 3 years, we've had either the state or federal agencies come in and assess our systems, try to hack into them. They'll make recommendations of what we can do to strengthen our protections, and we implement those recommendations. I can't share with you what some of those are because then they lose their protective qualities, but what I can share with you is that state law does prohibit counties from connecting our ballot scanners and our voting systems that count those votes and tally them and add them up. We are prohibited from connecting those to the internet. Additionally, in this county, we also do not connect that equipment and those systems to the county's own internal wide area network. Our ballot scanners and voting system equipment and servers are all air-gapped within our office. They are in rooms that have hard key access to get into them, and only specific people are given that access. So it would be very difficult for somebody to hack into and modify our vote counting in any way. But at the end of the day, if there was an issue, say our system went down, we do always have paper ballots. In the state of California, every voter must vote a paper ballot, no matter which method they choose of doing so. Next, we have been getting questions about these new, I'm sorry, you can go back real quick. Next, we have been getting questions from voters and about the mail ballot drop boxes and how secure they are. So I did want to tell you that those boxes that we purchased are made of 18-gauge steel. They weigh just under 200 pounds, so they're not something somebody could walk up and just carry off. But as added protection, they are anchored and bolted to the concrete pads that they sit on. And those anchor bolts are not accessible from the outside. You actually, each box has its own unique 2 locks on the side to open the door to retrieve the ballots and access the bolts. And so you have to have both of those keys to get in. Additionally, we have partnered with public agencies such as the city, who is hosting a box in front of the county library branch there. And our partners are putting them in locations that have high visibility, that that people will know about and know how to find and are familiar with, but also places where people can keep an eye on them. And if anybody tries to deface or damage the box in any way, our partners will be calling us so we can address that and fix it. The last thing I'll say about the box is that the deposit slot for the ballots is very narrow. It only really fits a ballot envelope in it. I know when I used one, I could not even fit the width of my finger into the slot. So there is no way to reach in and somehow mess with the ballots. Additionally, that ballot deposit slot is angled upward to protect against anybody trying to pour liquid and damage the ballots in that way. Finally, I did want to talk about another question we do get is about the safety of voting in polling places, not because of COVID-19, but just about potential issues or intimidation that might happen there. And so what I wanted to tell you is that we do train our poll workers how to provide good customer service and how to de-escalate potential tense situations. But we have also worked with the Sheriff's Department this year to expand that training. So our poll worker supervisors and polling place supervisors and polling place assistant supervisors will receive an additional hour of training that the Sheriff's Department put together regarding de-escalation techniques. But at the end of the day, we tell our poll workers and our supervisors that if your techniques are not working, and you can always call us for assistance and additional tips on what to do, but ultimately, if they believe that the situation poses an immediate danger to the people that are present, we do instruct them to call 911. And to ensure that we're going to get a quick response to that, we have coordinated with the Sheriff's Department and all of our police departments in the county. We provided them with the locations of all of our ballot boxes, all of our polling places, all of our early vote sites to make sure that they can respond quickly because they know where we are and where voting is occurring. Next slide, please. Now, a little bit about our voter education campaign. So, as I said, this is required. We're required to provide one. We're required to provide it in 8 different languages in our county. And we came up with a messaging regarding this is your ballot, vote safe, and vote early. The reason that we came up with this first is that while we're mailing a ballot to all the voters in our county, we're not dictating how they actually vote that ballot. So we want to stress to the voter, this is your ballot. It's your choice to cast your vote in the way that you believe is the most safe and secure. We're not telling you which one you should do, but we do want you to know that whichever one you choose, you will be able to vote safe. So that's a big part of why we're talking about the safety measures we're taking for this election. Finally, because the presidential general election every 4 years is the election that gets the highest level of voter turnout, we are encouraging people to vote early. And obviously, as I mentioned, there are a number of opportunities to do that, whether it's mailing it back, putting it in a Dropbox, or coming to our early vote site or our office, or potentially going to a polling place on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. We are encouraging people to vote early because with that high level of turnout, it's in normal years without a pandemic, we have seen in these elections for president that we've had lines and crowds at the polling place, potentially waits of up 1 to 2 hours. So we don't want to put our voters in harm by having them have to be in such long lines and wait, and don't want them to be in crowded situations in polling places. So we do want you to take advantage of all the opportunities to not wait until November 3rd to vote. That is the last day. If you have to on that day, we understand and we will serve you. But if you can do it earlier, we think that would provide you with more options and that could be safe for you. So that's why we use that messaging for this education campaign. The other thing I wanted to say is that these kind of community presentations are the backbone of our campaign. We have completed 45 of these presentations in the last month and a half, and we still have more scheduled through next Saturday. And the reason that is that UCR and Common Cause, a voter advocacy group, did a survey earlier this year in which they asked likely voters a number of questions, one of which was, what is for you the most trusted source of information about the election? And official elections mail, like my county voter information guide or the ballot, was not their highest ranked trustworthy source. It was actually information that they received from other members of their community that they might be in a group with, somebody else from their church leaders, their community leaders, are the people that they most trust for this kind of information. So we're doing these presentations, but we're also providing the groups that we work with access to a communications toolkit that is on our website, and it provides some answers to some commonly asked questions. It has an infographic with some basic important information about the election. It also has some sample messages that people can use for social media posts or newsletter articles, some sample graphics such as website banners or social media post graphics. And we've also put together 3 educational videos, short videos, about how to vote, about how to register, that we have in that toolkit as well that can be shared. But that's not to say that we're completely relying on community groups to help us. We are still buying advertising in newspapers and radio and billboards. We have been working really hard over the last month to speak with the media and brief them about this so that they could write good stories. We're posting on social media and seeking public service announcements as well. So the next few slides, as you roll through, are some examples of some of what we've accomplished. So here's some examples of some newspaper articles and information about as well as some TV news pieces about the election, samples of some of the ads that we're doing. And then next, I think we've got some samples of some screenshots of the videos that we put together. And lastly, some of the samples of the social media graphics we have in the toolkit, and then this is a copy of the infographic, the English on the left side, Spanish on the other, but as I said, we provide this material also in Chinese, Korean, Thai, Tagalog, Vietnamese, and Indonesian. So as I mentioned, if you go to the next slide, that everything that the city can do, obviously we appreciate this opportunity to talk to your residents and have this video available to them. We do encourage anybody who watches this to share this information with your family and friends and colleagues. If you see something on social media that you know is misinformation, is not correct, we always ask people to kind of let us know about that so that either us or the Secretary of State can address that, or if you want to, if you feel comfortable providing the correct information, we always appreciate that as well. The final thing on the next slide is that we are still, this week, we still have an open recruitment for help with this election. We're recruiting some extra time, extra help positions, employees for the county that pay just under $16 an hour. If you go to the county's jobs website with our Human Resources Department, which is www.sbcounty.gov/jobs, look for the announcement for general election worker. You can put that application in, and hopefully you can help us work with things from answering the phones to counting ballots to delivering supplies and equipment to our polling places and potentially being a polling place supervisor. So next, we did in this, because we're providing we provided a copy of this presentation to the city, wanted to make sure that the city and your residents had access to some important links, how to call us if you have questions, how to email us, what our website address is. If you're interested in signing up for the Secretary of State's Where's My Ballot tracking tool, there's a link for doing that. Additionally, a link to our My Elections Gateway tool on our website, which we encourage voters who may have moved since the last time they voted to get into that application and check to see what the current registration information we have for you, what address we have for you, what your political party preference is, and then we have a link to our communications toolkit. So that's the overview of this election. And now, Cheryl, if you've got questions either from the community or questions you have, I, of course, can answer those.
Excellent. So those of you who are joining us tonight, if you wish to ask a question, please raise your hand via the Zoom app, or if you're dialing in by phone, please dial *9, and we'll select your hand as we see them raised. So I do see a raised hand. One moment, please. Valerie McClung.
Yes.
Valerie? We're not hearing you, Valerie. You might have yourself muted on your end. Okay. Sometimes there's a challenge on the listener's end, and they have themselves muted either on their phone line or on their headset. It appears as though that may be the case here.
Okay. I completely understand that. That happens in meetings all the time now.
Yeah, it's difficult because we don't see that it's muted. But there are no other hands that are raised at this time. Is there any? Hold on, just a moment. Oh, one just popped up. One moment. This is Julia Tavis.
Hi there. I just wanted to confirm that I read somewhere that the ballot that we receive, if we take our mail-in ballot into a polling place, they will give us what is called a provisional ballot. Is that correct?
It sounds like the information you got was a little bit backwards.
Okay.
No, it's okay. I want to make sure you have the right information. So, and some of this might go back to prior to this year when we used paper rosters at the polling places. So currently, because we have electronic rosters on poll pads, we encourage voters to bring, if they want to vote a polls ballot rather than their mail ballot, we do encourage them to bring it in so that we actually see it and can cancel it in person. But because we have those electronic rosters and poll pads, we can, if a voter comes into a polling place and wants to vote a polls ballot, we can electronically suspend the mail ballot that was sent to you, and so that mail ballot can't be voted. In the past, when voters came to our polling place when we had printed rosters, if our roster showed that we sent them a mail ballot, they didn't come in and surrender it, then we did require them to vote provisionally because we had no way to communicate with our registration system in real time to say that you had checked in at a polling place. So we made you vote provisionally, put it in a provisional envelope so that we could then bring it back and make sure that we hadn't received a mail ballot from you. Now, because we have this electronic roster and it's connected to our registration system and voter participation history, if you come into a polling place and you've already voted your mail ballot, that roster will show that we already received one from you. If you come in and the roster shows you haven't participated in the election yet, then we can check you in, give you a regular polls ballot, put it in the box, and then if later you were to try to vote your mail ballot by sending it in, that would then be flagged as it went through our ballot scanner, ballot sorter, as you already having a voting history, and it would be challenged, and we would do some more research to make sure that you had checked in at the polling place before we rejected that mail ballot that came in second. So, so you don't have to bring it in, but we do. It does help our poll workers a little bit if you do, but ultimately it's not required because we are able to communicate between polling places, so somebody can't go from one to the next and try to vote twice, as well as we are able to see whether somebody's already voted a mail ballot before they show up at the polling place.
Okay, so I guess there's so much talk about fraud and all that sort of thing. I just want to understand. Yeah. So what is the process that will keep a person from mailing their ballot or dropping it in a ballot box on their way to a polling place on the 3rd? And so my thought is just, I'm just like everybody else. I'm just thinking like, okay, so does that mean they're not going to have legitimate polling results for a couple days till they can sort out all the, any kind of overlap, I guess, that would take place like that?
Yeah, so there's a couple things for me to unpack there. So first, if somebody on their way to a polling place dropped their mail ballot in a Dropbox or put it in the mail, and assuming they did it early enough in the day that it would be postmarked on November 3rd, and they went to the polling place and checked in, the mail ballots that we receive on either election day in a Dropbox or after election day that are postmarked on the 3rd, those are not counted on election night. The only ballots that are counted on election night are the polls ballots that are voted at a polling place. And so we would, in that situation that example you give, the person will have checked in at the polling place, because we would have no voter history because we wouldn't have picked up their or received from the post office their mail ballot yet.
Sure.
And so that would be the person's first vote, would be at the polling place. And then once we picked up the mail ballot from either the Dropbox or it was delivered to us from the post office, as soon as we ran that envelope through our mail ballot sorter, we would already have the voting history for that voter that they voted at a polling place, and that mail ballot would be separated and put in a pile of challenges to review, and then somebody, in going through all the challenges, would see that voter had already voted at a polling place, so that this ballot can't be counted. In terms of delays for results, so the idea that we're not gonna know the final results for weeks later, that has actually been true up until this point. So in the state of California, because of all these different options for voting, either a polling place or by mail, and giving time for them to get in, and the requirements for counting and processing mail ballots, and then doing audits, we're always given a certain amount of time after election day to actually certify the election, to finish counting, complete our audits, and certify the results. So for this election, because it's got a presidential contest in it, I must certify the election results by December 1st, which is 28 days after Election Day. I fully expect, because in every statewide election that I've officiated over as the Registrar of Voters, we have used every available day in the canvass period to complete our count and our votes. So I'm expecting that we will, again, for this election, I don't know, maybe enough people vote early and I can actually get done a little earlier, but I'm assuming that it's going to take us all 28 days. And so it won't be until December 1st that I actually certify the results, that these are the final vote counts in San Bernardino County for all these different contests, from the president down to water district board of directors or school district or school board member. So that's always been the case. And so in the gubernatorial election in November of 2018, we were allowed 30 days to certify, and we certified on that 30th day. Other elections that are small elections, we get less time to certify, and sometimes we're able to get done earlier because there's less votes in that. But for these major elections that are countywide, statewide, it's been my experience that we need the full amount of time the state gives us to finish. The last thing I'll say is that so polling place ballots that are cast, the law requires that every polls ballot that we receive on election day, that we must count and stay and continue to count until we've counted all of them. So in the primary, after the polling places closed at 8 o'clock and the ballots were returned to us somewhere between like 9 and 10 to our office for counting, we were processing and counting those polling place ballots until the last report we did was 4 a.m. So, you know, we worked from 6 a.m. the morning of March 3rd until 4 a.m. on March 4th, straight through. We could not stop. That's the law. So what happens, and why I said we're not going to be counting mail ballots that are received on election day that night, is because that's our focus on election night, is we have to count all the polls ballot. And in elections that I've done, it's each election, this seems to be holding true so far that I've done, is that we get about half of the mail ballots returned to us early before election day, and the other half received on election day, either dropped off at a polling place or our office, or a couple days, in the days after, because they're postmarked on election day. So the idea that when somebody wakes up the day after the election that they know the final results it's not really been the case for quite some time with mail ballot voting in the state, because of the voters' behavior, that we get about half of our mail ballots back on election day or after it. So it does take us time. The results for every election I've done, I have seen certain local races where the person who was in the lead early in the night on election night, or maybe even at that 4 a.m. time when we do our final polling place ballot report, is not necessarily the person that wins at the end of the day, because there's still plenty of ballots to count.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bob, this is Cheryl. Can you talk a little bit about if a registered voter were to receive multiple ballots due to maybe registering a second time with a variation of their name, and what they should do in those circumstances?
Yeah, so it is possible, and it does happen from time to time, that after the point that we run the first voter file for the mailing of the ballots, somebody will update something. They'll change an address slightly, or re-register, and the second time they re-register, not put a middle name or just put an initial. And every time somebody makes a change like that, then we have to assume that we need to send them a new ballot because they've made a change to their registration. So it is possible that somebody could receive 2 mail ballots. What happens in that case is the first ballot that we issued and mailed is suspended, and then the second ballot is the one that is able to be voted. So what I would recommend voters to do is that if that is the case where they re-registered or changed something and they now have 2 ballots, and it is possible they even get 2 ballots on the first day that we mailed out, because we run that first voter file in early September, and the last date to potentially pull something out of that because of a change was September 11th, and we were continuing to run updated voter lists to mail ballots, up until the time that we did that first mailing on October 5th, and we've continued to do new updates as people re-register or newly register. So what we recommend they do if they can't remember what was the information they put in the last time they re-registered, because that will be the ballot that's still active, they can go on our website and use the My Elections Gateway tool that I mentioned in the slide, that for them to look up what is the current information that we have in their voter registration. And then if it was a slight variation in the name or a slight change in the address, like maybe the first time they registered and they were living in a condominium, they just put hashtag with a number, and then when they re-registered, they put unit number, the word unit in front of the number. They need to look to see what was the last time I registered, what does the registrar of voters have, and that'll be the ballot that's still active and can be voted. But that's what I would recommend to do. If they can't figure that out on their own through the website, they can always call us at 909-387-8300, and we can help them figure out which is the ballot that was suspended and which is the one that they can vote.
Is there anything to any protocol where a situation like this might have occurred if they were not to reach out to you, but they say voted on the suspended ballot unknowingly, but only voted on that suspended? Do you have protocols in place to contact them or something when that ballot comes through your process, seeing that no other ballot was received?
Yeah, we do have protocols. Does not include in calling the voters, but if we do get back the ballot that we suspended, we do have protocols to make sure that we're not getting the second one, and knowing that it's always possible a voter makes a mistake and sends the suspended ballot back. So we take account to that and have a decision-making process to the research to do to make sure we didn't get the second one, and ultimately then, before we certify, we can count that first one, assuming no other ballot came in.
Okay. I do have another hand raised, but I have one more quick question for you.
Sure.
Are the ballot boxes coded for fire safety on the inside?
I would have to look into that. I'd have to look at the specs. I know that Orange County advertises them as being that, and we've got the same boxes as LA County. I'd have to go and look to see what our specs are on that. Unfortunately, I can't answer that specifically.
I think with the angle, it makes it pretty difficult to do much with them. But
yeah.
Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and let Valerie, she's now able to talk, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute
Sure.
her microphone. Valerie?
Thank you.
I think she's ready to talk. Let's see.
Okay.
Oh, it appears she was having some difficulties with her microphone. Valerie?
Oh.
So So the question that she had was wanting to let our residents know, and anybody who's on the call, where the location is for the Dropbox that is here at the City of Chino Hills. We partnered with the Registrar of Voters, and we placed a Dropbox in front of the James Thalman Library, directly across from City Hall. If you are facing the library front doors, it's to the left outside of the library. What's nice about that location is that it is in full view of all of the cameras that we have placed on our entrance at City Hall. So we are very excited about the security that we have for that ballot box. People who wish to come and drop off the ballots can come on Boys Republic and exit at that parking area, or park on the other side by the police department and walk up to it. We will be hosting a ballot drop-off event on October 22nd, and at that event we will be having cars drive up through the roundabout that's in between the City Hall and the Fire Administration Building. They'll be coming in off of Boys Republic, driving, parking temporarily, dropping it off in the main ballot drop box. And if there are any citizens who wish to vote who are unable to exit their vehicle for whatever reason or need some sort of accommodation, we have secured some movable drop boxes to take to their car to assist them with voting. So we're very excited about the event that's coming up on October 22nd. It'll be from 3 to 8 p.m.
And I do appreciate that, Cheryl, and I can let your residents know that we are providing you with the ballot boxes you're using, so they will be official.
Yes, exactly. Great. If there's any other comments, please raise your hand at this time. You can raise it via the Zoom app or *9 via phone. I do not see any other hands raised at this time, so if there's any concluding comments you want to make, Bob?
Well, actually, I had heard you had a question about the Where's My Ballot tracking service the Secretary of State provides.
Yes. So we want to make sure that the voters who utilize either the system through the county website or the Secretary of State website gets the most up-to-date information. Is there a delay in the updates to your system? Is there any information that we should put out to our residents to, just remind them to be patient and give it a couple days? Or what is your suggestion on that?
Yeah. So in terms of if they haven't signed up for Where's My Ballot, but they still want to check on the status of their mail ballot, they can do that through either our website or the Secretary of State's website. You can do with ours. You can do that through the My Elections Gateway. Once you log into that with your voter information, you can then click on your ballot status button and pick this election and see where it is in the process if you want to proactively do it. Similarly, with the Secretary of State, they have a tool on their website called Voter Status that allows you to check the status of your mail ballot. If you've signed up for and in terms of delay, I don't believe there's a delay between those two systems going up on their website, but I'm not sure how quickly the state puts their stuff up, because that information is coming from our voter registration system here as we're processing ballots and going up to the statewide voter registration system called VoteCal. So it's in our system first as we're processing those ballots. I do know that there has been an issue that came up regarding the way notifications were going out on the Secretary of State's Where's My Ballot tool. And I know this because I actually tested the system to see what would happen with my ballot. So I deposited my ballot for this election in a Dropbox on Thursday the 8th. I can check from my system to know that a ballot retrieval, two-person ballot retrieval team picked up my ballot that day, and it was received by our office here. So I have received a ballot tracks message that my ballot was mailed on October 5th, but I still have not received a message that my ballot was received by the Registrar of Voters, even though I can see in our system that it was. What we have found out today and and we've been getting other calls from voters saying they haven't gotten their received notifications from ballot tracks or where's my ballot yet either. So we were in discussions with the state to figure out what was going on. And what we learned today was that while we were properly coding our ballots as they were coming in, the Secretary of State had made a decision that ballots in a certain bucket of being in review and not either accepted or challenged yet were not getting the received message. So they are going to correct that today. So hopefully that bit of delay that myself and other voters who were had their mail ballots in the review bucket still will start getting those messages more quickly.
So for the county system, what is the expected turnaround to have it updated on your system?
Well, what I would say is that when we go out and say if somebody puts it in the Dropbox and we pick it up during the day and bring it back, it should be within 24 hours of when we pick it up that it shows up in our system as received and being processed.
To be able to access that information.
Correct, on our website. We're using the My Elections Gateway tool.
And Bob, I've been getting a lot of calls from voters asking for the pickup schedule. Is that something that is set across the board, and is that something you can post on your website?
It's not something because it gets adjusted. So the state regulations require that we have a certain frequency for our pickups. So we are required between now and the 23rd to pick up ballots from each box at least every 96 hours. And then after the 23rd, we're required to pick them up at least every 48 hours. And they don't include the weekends in that regulation. We are finding, though, that our boxes are getting a lot of use, and so we are in the process right now this week of increasing that frequency. So while we started out the first week with making sure we met the minimum requirement of 96 hours, this week we're now increasing that. But we have not traditionally posted a specific schedule that we're going to, on these days, pick up at these locations.
Right, okay. I think that's all I have. You did a fantastic job. We really appreciate you taking the time and providing this information to our residents and to anybody else who, whether they live in Chino Hills or not, have joined in on this meeting. And we're excited that we're able to record it and replay it, and hopefully it will get a lot of people logging in to get some of their concerns alleviated. And thank you so much. I know this is a very busy time for you, so we appreciate your time.
And I definitely appreciate this opportunity and to talk to both you and your residents and voters about this election and what they can do to vote safely and vote securely. So I do appreciate this opportunity.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, take care.
Thank you.